Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. All right, well, I am here with Catherine Grace O'Connell, and I'm so excited to have you because I love that we met through Clubhouse, and we just are so aligned from a heart perspective, Catherine. And I'm truly so grateful to have met you. And your story is so powerful. So, personally, I'm just thrilled for my listeners and my viewers to have the opportunity to not only meet you, but to hear about your story and how you found your voice, how you found your confidence, and give hope to people, particularly in midlife. So, I'll turn it over to you, Catherine, to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Karen. I am so excited to be here. And I'm Catherine Grace O'Connell. I am the founder of Mission and Movement to help women understand that they matter, midlife matters, those years and decades at, say, 40, 50, 60, 70, there's so many multiple acts that we do. They matter, we matter. And I am someone who didn't have a voice for most of my life. So I am turning 60, and it's really only been about 5 years since I found my voice. And yeah, it really took, I'm almost losing my life to find myself. And obviously, a key part of finding ourselves and self discovery is in our voice and in our self worth and our self confidence. It's all connected to me. So, yeah, so I'm really excited to be here. And I've learned so much in a short amount of time with you over on Clubhouse. You have such a beautiful gift in connecting, like you said, through the heart, and really this empathy bridge that you have mastered. So I'm really delighted to be here with you and to connect with your audience.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Well, why don't we jump right into your story? Can you bring us into a moment when you realized, oh my gosh, I mean, any moment you want to share. I think there's multiple moments that you've had in the short time that you've recently found your voice. I think, by the way, that is so powerful to me, and that is a great piece of hope for many people in midlife. That I think a lot of us think, oh my gosh, I'm already 50 or I'm already 60, and oh, who am I, and all of those self-doubt messages. But let me turn it over to you, and you share whatever you'd like to share around your story.
Well, if you're here and you're a living, breathing being, you have a voice and you have something to offer the world, right? I didn't really understand that. And I do believe that a big part of I almost lost my life a few years ago. I was diagnosed with late stage Lyme disease. The doctors traced it back over 10 years by the time I was diagnosed. So went from doctor to doctor. Nobody would believe me. They'd be like, you look like this. There's nothing wrong with you. And that was extremely frustrating. So I wasn't being seen or heard until I actually practically was a dead person. So I had 2 cases of spinal meningitis. They were 10 years apart, which is how they traced it back because the Lyme was in my brain. So by the time I had undergone treatment, that was in spring of 2014. By 11/11/14, I went through a near-death experience. So the downfall was that fast. The diagnosis was spring. By that, toward the end of the year, I basically was a goner. I was under 100 pounds. I'm 5'9", like 98 pounds, and all my organs were shutting down. So it was a pretty crazy year. I was bedridden, seizures every day, full body, 3 to 8 hours. So it was exhausting. Frankly, I wanted to go. I was like, okay, I'm good with up there. I think that's a pretty sweet place. I'm not sure down here. These humans are kind of crazy. So I had been through a lot of abuse and trauma, and it had repressed my voice, which I really do believe is a key part of the healing and how I came back to life so quickly. And for me, and I don't advocate this for anybody else, but I put the doctors and all their protocols aside because when it comes to someone with Lyme disease, it's an unusual illness. It's not like cancer where there's all these treatments that are, have been kind of investigated over the years and they know exactly how to treat you. Lyme disease is an odd one, and you can go to 10 doctors and they'll give you 10 different protocols, and they're pretty much 24/7. You're doing them all the time. So for me, I realized I was trapped in illness, and I made this pivotal point internally after I survived the near-death experience. I'm like, okay, why am I here? I said I was okay going. You saved me now, you, universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Why am I here? And I really struggled with that until I made this decision to be well, to think wellness, to live wellness, to put the illness aside, because you can get trapped in illness. It's an energy, right? And not that every single illness can be changed the way mine did. For me, I knew that the connection was trauma and abuse. I knew it was what was going on inside of me. Interestingly enough, I'd gone to one of the top infectious disease specialists in LA, and he said, yes, you have Lyme disease. Yes, it's very serious, but your biggest issue is trauma. And it was really the first Western medicine doctor that got it. And I realized that was true. It was inside of me. So it was decades of things being told to me, disempowering, beliefs that I took on. So all those things that were projected onto me, I took on as me, and they became me until they didn't, until I realized I was ready to cast all that aside and live again from a completely different space. And a big part of that was finding my voice, and not just finding it, but using it, sharing it, teaching other women that we all have a voice inside of us. We all have a story. We all have a message, and we're here for a reason. So our stories change other women's lives when we open our hearts, especially telling the most vulnerable, shameful things that we feel are shameful. It gives other women permission to open up too. And I started healing rapidly, and I started helping others, and the whole snowball story started going. And I'm 6 years later, and I'm still going and still helping women.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's truly so inspiring. And I love that you made a choice. I
Mm.
talk a lot with women about the power of self-agency and how a lot of times we just do get stuck and we feel like we have no choice. And to make that decision is really, really powerful. And I also want to encourage anybody listening right now that if you're struggling in any area of your life to make that choice. And I'm curious, Catherine, from your perspective, what advice would you give to someone who is potentially in, I know your situation is quite unique, but maybe something similar?
Well, illness is an energy, it's a vibration, right? So if we bring something in that makes us feel better, gives us energy, positivity, whatever it is. For me, like I said, I was bedridden, and I was working with an empowerment coach, and she said to me, "You're a creator, you must create." And keep in mind, my arms, I can't, like, I can barely move, but I had a mind in here, right? I actually could create. It's amazing what you can do with your mind. It's amazing the power of healing. So I would say, be really careful about what you're telling yourself. What you're telling yourself, it can make your life go one way or the other. So I realized what I was doing inside of myself. I realized the way I was literally killing myself. I was dying on the inside for a very long time that people couldn't see. But it's be really mindful of what's going in, not just the foods and the supplements. For me, I was doing all of the right things that way, but I still was really, really sick. And I realized the biggest thing that I was ingesting were negative thoughts and beliefs about myself. So I would say start there. I mean, no matter where you're at, no matter how sick you are on a degree of, illness, I was really at the bottom. But I started in here, and they're amazing stories. Matisse, he started creating his art from bed. He was physically disabled. Look at Joseph Pilates, where Pilates came from, a hospital bed. So we tell ourselves a lot of stories, but people create from all kinds of amazing spaces.
That's such a good reminder, isn't it? And whether it's something that, yeah, that you're creating out of hardship or just simply creating, too often too, I see women comparing themselves. Oh, well, oh, that person did this, or oh, there's this. And I love that what somebody had said to me years ago about don't compare your day one to somebody else's day 5,000 or whatever it might be, because I think about how just vibrant and beautiful and full of life that you are. It's almost impossible to imagine what your situation was like for someone that would
Well,
meet like me today.
yeah, I think it's so important. And you talk about a number of things. Creativity is, we come from creation, right? We are born to create. If we're not creating, or we don't feel like we're creative, or we don't feel in a place of inspiration, create that place, right? Inspiration comes through us. It comes from a different place, no matter what you believe and it's in our hearts. We have dreams in our hearts, and they're real, and they're speaking to us at all times. So our heart never lies. Our mind tells us all kinds of crazy stories, but our heart never lies. So creativity comes from the heart, and creativity is immensely healing. It also is a way of sharing your story with others, maybe not physically out there, but maybe just through writing, maybe through art. All of these things are speaking. They're speaking our story, and they're healing at the same time and allowing us to connect to others.
Hmm. It's so true. And the connection piece, I love that, because that's really what life is all about. And when we think about, I mean, the name of my podcast is Ignite Your Confidence. And confidence is so connected to connecting with ourselves and also with other people. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering from your perspective, Catherine, when you think about just simply that connection piece, where has that really served you in your life, particularly in these last few years?
The connection piece to myself or to others, you mean, in
But I'd
sharing?
love to have you share both, actually. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for that. I do believe, number one, we can't really connect to others. I mean, really connect unless we're connected to ourselves. And many of us lose connection with ourselves. When we're talking about confidence, if you think about it, confidence is just a belief system, right? Somebody who's really confident has a different belief system than you. Belief systems are belief systems, and they can be changed. We know many times we're changing our beliefs, right? So if we don't believe in ourselves, we can't feel confident. And if we can't, feel confident and believe in ourselves, we're not connected to ourselves. So connection with others begins with ourselves. That empathy bridge you were talking about today on Clubhouse, you have this gift of an empathy bridge that comes from our heart. And many of us that have been through trauma, I had a very traumatic, abusive background, both in childhood and both in my marriage. Trauma oftentimes causes you to disassociate with yourself, right? Many of us leave our bodies for many reasons, but if we're not in here, we're not fully grounded in here, fully present in here, fully present in here, we can't connect to others.
Absolutely. It is so true. And how would you recommend somebody do that? If they're trying to connect with themselves, what would be one step that you would recommend people take?
Joy, joy. I mean, go back to childhood, right? So here I am turning 60, but I reconnected to many of the things that I was doing as a child that I loved to do. Spending time in nature, climbing trees, doing artwork. I started writing and creating. Again, I couldn't really use, I couldn't write physically, but I had a computer. I could do that. So I was writing. So that was creating however I could. And getting into nature for me is instant joy. It puts me in a different space. It's automatically grounding. So for us to ground ourselves, it's really important. Inspiration can't come through unless we're grounded, right? It comes from a different place, comes through us. So I would say find whatever it is that sparks your joy, that makes you feel alive, that lights you up from the inside. We all have them. We just usually forget them.
That's such a good reminder too, and how those things from childhood can really dampen us or hinder us, really. And I think
Yeah.
about I've shared with some people the story about how I used to sell Mary Kay cosmetics when I was 18 years old. And I love that concept of fake it till you make it. And even though technically I really prefer act as if, because certainly the point is not to fake it technically, but to step into that confidence. Well, I remember being on fire and so excited when I came home from one of their Monday night meetings, and they were talking to us about having the burning desire to do something. And I was feeling this burning desire of not only the excitement that I loved about the makeup, but more importantly, even at that age, I remember really wanting to help women feel beautiful. And my dad scoffed at me when I came home. And I remember just feeling so defeated. I came home with all this excitement, and then there was this scoffing, and suddenly I got smaller. And I think about, for many people and many women in particular that are listening, probably had similar experiences, probably much worse than that. And the more we hear those things, the more we start believing it. It's just like you're talking about too, just how we think about ourselves and how we connect with ourselves. And I love that you talked about joy, because that's probably one of my number one, I shouldn't say probably, that is one of my number one values. And it also reminds me of the power of gratitude and writing things down. Many people use a gratitude journal or have some type of gratitude practice. but I really do love the concept of even just 3 to 5 things in the morning or in the evening and writing it down and continuing then to foster that gratitude piece.
There's a lot of science behind gratitude and what you said, really simple things. It doesn't have to be, especially if you're in a place where you're not feeling well. If you were ill, you don't have a lot of energy to spare. But I'll tell you, once you get into joy, it brings energy. So it's not like you have to do something. Just find that thing's joyful and it immediately bring you energy. And I'm sorry for what you went through with your dad. I was in fashion because I loved clothes growing up and had similar messaging. So it's not what happens to us, no matter what it is, abuse, trauma, just things that happen in life. There's a reality, right? There's one truth, but there's multiple realities. So it's what we tell ourselves, what we attach to what happened to ourselves, and then we attach meaning about ourselves. So that's what we have to be really careful about. And as we get older, we've got a lot of those stories inside of us. So it's like unpacking those stories one by one and seeing what really happened. What was I telling myself about that story? And, hopefully healing it and letting it go. And every time we do that, we go deeper into ourselves. You talk about self-agency, right? Self-actualization, self-discovery. That is the most powerful way to find confidence, to find your voice, to find meaning, to connect with yourself, to connect with others.
Yeah, so great. I am thinking about one thing I'd love to know about you is when you found you like, was there a moment when you realized I found my voice or I have newfound confidence? And if
Ooh.
so, could you bring us into that moment if you can think of it?
I suppose, thank you for that. It would be getting in front of a camera. I think I was talking in Clubhouse this morning or with a friend of mine that my mom was an actress, my daughter was an actress. I was never, ever on camera, on video. I was not on social media. I was like, what's Instagram? What's a hashtag? I have no idea. So it was getting in front of a camera. And initially it was awkward. When you haven't been in front of a camera and you don't have a lot of self-confidence and self-worth, you shrink, right? And over time, I've watched myself transform by this relationship of coming outside of myself, right? When you make yourself small, like you were talking about, I was really teeny tiny small. And I've watched this transformation happen over time. And part of that is you were talking about, videotape yourself, right? Be it get in front of a camera, video yourself, and play with what you're telling yourself inside. You'd be amazed to know when you are thinking thoughts inside your head, your mind, you're projecting that energy through, like right now, through the camera. So if I shift my energy internally, immediately it's going to be picked up on that camera. Cameras don't really see us, they feel us and they project an energy. So it's amazing to me where I was and where I've come from, literally 1 foot out of the grave in front of a camera, to now I'm really comfortable in front of a camera. And I love it. It's fun.
Oh, that's so great. I want everybody to hear what Catherine just said. It's fun.
It's fun. It's fun. There you go. Because those are your clients right there. That's your audience. It's fun. It is. If you do it, in a playful way. I was even talking to my daughter the other day, who's so comfortable in front of a camera, but now everything is auditions that she has to do from home, self tapes. That completely changed the energy. Like for me, being in an audience, my energy is very different than like with a video camera. So she's playing with that now, and she decided to completely change her internal energy, and it's working to send something different, much more relaxed and playful. She noticed she was really nervous, very different than she would be in person in audition. And she's playing with that energy and taping herself and watching this transformation happen just by shifting our thoughts and our energy. It's pretty cool.
That is super cool. Oh, I love that example. It's really fascinating. I continue to marvel at these ideas that we have about ourselves and the self-doubt that we have, the people pleasing, whatever it might be that we are doubtful about. And yet, then the transformation with just a small shift. And I think it's the author Bob Goff that talks about a quarter of a twist. He wrote a number of books, but I love how he talks about just a quarter of a twist. It's just that very small thing to make a shift. And then over time, you realize, oh my gosh, I've actually changed and it's working. And it does take intention. You've heard me talk about this before, Catherine, and I want to wrap up hearing with some of your thoughts on that around how do you keep this up? So when, for example, you come into maybe a message of self-doubt or something creeps in again, maybe some of the old tapes start playing or something like that. What is your recommendation to women that have that happening?
Well, I have a couple tools that I use. I pull out of my toolbox. I've been on a spiritual path 30 plus years studying this inner world. And for me, I know what works and what doesn't. So, one of the things that I began playing with early on, again, were my thoughts. And when you're laying in bed dying and you can't walk and you can't function, you've got to be taken care of by somebody else, you don't exactly have a whole lot of space in there for positive thought. So, that like saying something positive felt too much for me. So, what I began using was a mantra. So you talk about mantras like affirmations, but mine was more a vibration. It was Om Namah Shivaya, which means I am consciousness. So rather than trying to pivot to a positive thought, which felt like too much effort, I would just say this mantra inside my head, and we know how the subconscious works. It would start playing over and over. So rather than forcing this positive thought, I would just go, negative thing comes in, I'm exhausted, I can't move, oh, there's no sense in doing any of this stuff, it doesn't matter. I would just go Om Namah Shivaya, and it would just start literally running through my brain, and it would shift the energy. It's amazing. So I still use it to this day. I've been using this for a very, very long time. So whatever it is, and it can be an affirmation, but just something that you put through your mind, and that breaks that neural pathway, right? We're breaking the pattern of being ourselves, breaking the habit of these thoughts, and creating new healthy neural pathways. It's just breaking that. So it goes another way and it starts creating new healthy neural pathways. So that's one. The other one was really starting to look at myself. Like I would go into the mirror in the mornings, and this is really hard. Okay. I have the picture on my website where I'm a walking skeleton,
I
but
saw.
I would look in the mirror and I would connect into my eyes. So looking at my soul, and I would tell myself, you are beautiful. I love you. You are amazing. And that is really hard and really awkward to do initially. But over time, like anything else, it becomes so natural. And that's what children do. They're not judging themselves. They're thinking, I'm amazing. Like this is really cool. I am awesome, right? So it's getting back to that making something that feels unnatural natural again. So those were two things, and that is a Louise Hay mirror trick. Lots of stuff on the web about it, but it's really, really powerful.
I love it. That makes me think when you talked about the neural pathways, it made me think about one of my friends. Her name is Dr. Rachel Grant, and she did a workshop where she had us go around and say the most prominent self-doubt message that we have. And there were 15 women. Each one of us said what it was. And she just, after the last person went, she said, notice how heavy the room feels right now. Then she had us say that same self-doubt message as if we were in a Broadway musical.
Ooh.
So it would be something like, who am I to be getting this job?
That's awesome.
And she's a specialist in neuroscience. So she was talking about how just that, and then we were all laughing and it completely changed the energy. And then you almost feel ridiculous when you think about that message. So it made me think about that when you shared that example.
Well, it's so true. I'm an energy worker. So we were talking about energy this morning. That's all empathy is, right? You're connecting to someone
Right.
else's energy. You can feel them, and intuition is so important. So I will never forget when I was selling my house after going through a really brutal divorce, and there was a lot of abuse. And I learned that energy is stored in things. Like when you talk about that you can feel that. You can feel when you go into a room and there's been an argument, right? You can feel that tension still in the air, but it literally gets stored in the walls, it gets stored in objects. And I hired this woman to come in. There was a whole Karen Kingston was the energy. It's kind of like the Marie Kondo. She was very very big in the day. So this woman came through my home and she picked up objects and she would literally hold the object and she would tell me the whole history of the object. She would tell me, this is your grandmother's. I see her doing this. And she was dead on every single thing, and I was blown away. So I was like a believer that energy is stored. So, but you can also shift it, right? Like you just played with it then. You just play with it, and it's not just words, it's how we deliver those words, both out there and in here. It's
Yeah.
incredibly transformative.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that makes my jaw drop. I can only imagine what that was like when you experienced that. So,
It was crazy. So I realized, you can clear that just like we can clear it inside of ourselves, we can clear an object, but you can feel it. If people feel tension, so we have tension inside of ourselves, we're thinking negative thoughts, people can feel that.
wow. Yeah. So true. Oh my goodness. Well, Catherine, such a great conversation as always. I love being in your presence. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. I wanted to end with a couple of random questions that I think are fun to ask people. And one of those is, where was your first kiss?
Ooh, I wasn't ready for that one. Oh my goodness. Okay, well,
Talk about
I
out of
still
the blue.
remember. Do we really remember it like it was yesterday? So I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, Lake Forest, Illinois, and I was 13, and so seventh grade, and I had this crush on this boy. His name was Greg Glyman. We used to ride our bikes after school, and I'd ride by his house all the time and get like really nervous. So we were at a dance, and he took me outside, and there was my first kiss, and I was like, oh, amazing. So Greg Glyman, I still see him on Facebook and stuff. I don't know if he remembers that first kiss, but that was my first kiss. It was
Oh
awesome.
my gosh. I love this specific memory.
I do. I mean, it was like I was kissing a lot of boys. That was it. It was a dream. Yeah.
I love it. And what is something that you never leave home without?
Oh, what don't I leave home without? Geez, you've got some good ones here. What don't I leave home without? Ah, I don't know. It's a weird one right now with lockdown because I feel like I'm always home, and if I leave home, it's usually my puppy because she's a
Oh,
quarantine puppy, and she's just over a year, so she's not left my side. So that would not be a normal. That's not a normal answer for normal times, but in COVID, I usually have my puppy because she won't let me leave without her.
so sweet. Well, I remember when you were so gracious to come on the clubhouse room the other day that I was leaving. You were
Oh,
talking about had your puppy next to you. Oh, that's so sweet.
yeah.
How about what is on your nightstand right now?
I take a lot of supplements, healthy supplements, things to boost my energy, but I also use flower essences. So I like, if you think of like Bach remedies, I have someone who I work with who actually worked beside Bach and learned how to make those flower essences. So I have multiple flower essences for, different things. One right now I'm working with this walnut or olive, then also Rescue Remedy. He makes it actually himself, homemade. So I have these little flower essences because we are electrical beings. That's what energy is, right? So flower essences actually work on our electrical system. So they're really light and easy and gentle, but they do make amazing shifts over time. So I would say that.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Catherine. Well, it's been a pleasure as always to spend time with you. And I would love for you to share the best way for our audience here to reach you.
Oh, absolutely. It's lovely with you. I feel like I got, just a double fantastic dose of Karen. You are like the hit on Clubhouse. Everyone's like, I want to be in Karen's room. I want to be in Karen's room. So you're like, oh my God, she's a rock star. So this was just
Thank you.
sheer pleasure. So to find me, I have a blog. It's called CatherineGraceO.com. I also have a website, Forever Fierce Media. I have a group, Facebook group. It is called the Forever Fierce Midlife Matters Community. We also have a club on Clubhouse called Midlife Matters. I also on Instagram at Catherine Grace O. I have a podcast, Mastering Modern Midlife is my podcast. It's like this, a video podcast. So anywhere there. I'm very accessible. I respond 100% to messages. So to every single person, much like you, I'm sure.
Oh, you're amazing with that, with all of the followers that you have and all of the influence that you have. It's really speaks volumes
Mhm.
about your personal touch. So
Thank you.
I'm grateful, Catherine, and just wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much. This is so amazing. So thank you, everyone. Yeah,
Okay.
have a beautiful day.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.